Hello and welcome to the Misconnected podcast. I am Imani, your host. We officially have 15 episodes in the books, and I thought it would be a good point to break away from the normal episodes and formally introduce myself, give a little backstory. If you haven't figured out the accent by now, let me take some guesswork out. LA native, LA boy through and through. Professionally, been in the corporate world for quite some time, done a lot of travel, been to about 20 different countries across 50 cities. Where it's relevant to the podcast, like I'm pretty fascinated with figuring things out, and nothing exemplifies that more than a short documentary I saw a few years back called The Overview Effect. The overview effect is an expression used by astronauts to describe the experience of being in space for the first time. And what happens is that once they're in orbit, they look out the vessel's window towards Earth, and all of the astronauts in that documentary describe it as a moment that renders them speechless. You know, they're in awe of this beautiful, glorious spectacle that is our planet. And the connectedness of all the various land masses, the oceans, the storm systems, it really puts life and the world into focus. That was my impression of it, as told by the astronauts. And the experience is so profound and life-changing. I believe at least one of the astronauts, who was once an atheist, dove into religion when he returned to Earth. So that's like very much on the macro level. On the micro level and more of the why, I was living in Europe part of 2017, most of 2018, and looking at how things were shaping socially and politically back here in the US did not make me eager to come back home. Like it, not really a shining moment for Americans. And it's really interesting to compare the way American news outlets covers the U.S. news wise anyway, versus the way foreign outlets do. And objectively, it was a weird experience for me. Like it makes us look bad in some ways and all the normal mainstream shit. And I don't recall much slander or bending of facts in the foreign press. It was very objective, from what I can tell. In fact, I can't tell you how many times I was asked, like, "Hey, man, like, what's going on in your country?" And it's just a lot of times it was hard to explain or defend what was going on. Interestingly, one of those times I was in a restaurant in Munich, and this is a restaurant I think is called Hofsbrau or something like that. But allegedly, this is where Hitler had his first Nazi meeting during the 1930s, I believe, to form, the Nazi Party with all the senior people. And one of the most memorable moments of my life was a dinner I had my last night there, and I was breaking bread with an Irish cat, a Welsh guy, and this German dude, all white guys, and me, the only black guy. And in the most respectful way, they were genuinely wanting to know, like what happened in the 2016 election and why the social division and whatnot. And again, it was just a weird conversation to have in that restaurant, given its history. And look, man, don't get me wrong. Foreign countries have their own shit going on. Like that's not lost on me. And I would say by and large, I'm a proud American. There's a lot to be proud of. And there's a lot of things that really put a black eye on our reputation. But at that time, the U.S., frankly, didn't feel like a place I wanted to come back to. I was exploring my options of, whether I would go to another country or just kind of stay away. And I ended up coming back. But while I was over there was these countries where people were like very nice. Unlike the way I've been treated in America. I mean, people in Munich would ride their bike, tons of them, and then get off of it without locking it, and nobody would fuck with it. I was in Geneva, and I got lost, and this woman who was a total stranger took me by the hand to show me where I was. I mean, she walked with me about, I want to say about 30 yards and pointed in the direction I needed to go. And we just said goodbye. I mean, it was just weird to get treated like that and not get that kind of treatment back at home. So observing everything that was brewing over here during that time with all the, the political tribalism, the silly reality shows, and the school shootings, the gun debates, and the hostility, like I found myself having a recurrent thought. And that thought was so many times, man, like, man, this guy, he's not getting it, or she's not getting it, or these people, they're not getting it. They're not seeing the big picture. They're connecting the wrong dots for whatever reason, hence the name Misconnected. And if you're connecting the wrong dots, you are absolutely in a misconnected state. And the facts never change, no matter how much people want to ignore that fact. The dots are the fucking dots. Science is science. People are people. The facts are the facts, period. Two things I feel that I do well, and maybe you'll agree, is that I can break down the social game tape. I can, analyze this stuff and then in turn give, a sound analysis or give sound advice. So to that end, I decided that I wanted to, start this show. And so I said to myself, when I come back to LA, I'm going to do a podcast, and I'll just kind of figure out what I need to do. Now, in terms of listeners, the kind of, I like the idea of having listeners from different backgrounds. I don't care where. South, East Coast, West, Rust Belt, liberals, conservatives, anybody English speaking, any English speaking person on the planet. I welcome everybody. If somehow I can help the racists or the so-called elitists see the world more clearly, I think it's instantly making the world a better place. And years ago, my attitude toward these people was very harsh, but I've really evolved on that. And I would say I come a long way, and I'm a lot more welcoming. So if this is a show that can help the so-called incel or this, some suicidal person or some trans confused individual in understanding themselves and understanding the world enough to keep them from falling into the abyss or deeper into the abyss, then I think we're instantly a stronger community. And it all goes back to that overview effect, man. And I don't remember what my particular overview moment was, but here I am, just very open-minded and willing to help as much as I can because I genuinely enjoy that. That's why I make the effort to lay problems out as I see it without all the name calling and berating and hatred. That's, not really my style. It can be fun, but I don't really see where it helps besides the comedic value. And I've never known anybody to be persuaded or won over by insults and mockery. So I say, why do that? Speaking of why, look, I know what it's like to struggle based on having an obstructed or, a really unclear vantage point of myself and an unclear vantage point of the world. And that's why these episodes tend to, center more on like the high stakes subjects, like the last episode of Soft Children, like coddling children, and a little bit before that, sexual assault, the perils of hope. And because I think obviously it's a lot of these things are negatively affecting people's lives in the most destructive ways. And look, man, like I always say, don't take my word for it. You can look at the data. You can look at the suicide rates in this country, the divorce rates, the opioid epidemic. I mean, there's so much verifiable, solid data to draw from. And I really refuse to be yet another person talking about some low calorie, low flying bullshit. I think enough people are doing that. I rather, steer my conversation toward things of substance. So, if people are looking for that kind of stuff, there's plenty of content out there for that, but this is obviously not the place for that. And I would say I'm living proof to the shit I'm dropping in these episodes. And it wasn't always like that. One of the reasons I can help is because I have perspective. Like, I'm really familiar with some of that darkness people experience. Man, I've struggled with a lot of issues in the past. I've had angst, was very torn about a lot of different things, very confused, had strained relationships, social blind spots, you name it. But now, today, like, I lead what I would consider like a very balanced and peaceful life. And I'm really grateful for it. So, that's the backstory. Look, I don't like the whole idea of the stock line of, like, share, subscribe, and click like. I think people are savvy enough with, all the social platforms and media to know what to do. So, if this is a show you like, of course I want you to subscribe, and of course I want you to share with your friends and your family and your coworkers if it's around your heart, if it's something you want to do. So, yeah, man, I mean, click like, do all the other goofy shit content providers ask you to do. Yeah, that's it. You know what? I'll cut it there. Enjoy the future episodes. I'm, constantly thinking of new topics to engage you guys with. So that's it. Be well, and catch you on the next episode.